Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just want to pick up just a couple of wrap-up questions on the Springbank SR1 project. You talked earlier about the Deputy Minister's Committee, Environment and Parks, Justice, Treasury Board, Finance, as well as yourselves in Transportation. I'm curious if those conversations are limited only to the Springbank project itself, or if you're having broader discussions about things like flood mapping work.
Yeah, it's just Springbank at this point.
It's just Springbank.
Yeah, we're very targeted on, that. There's obviously a lot more that needs to be done in terms of flood mitigation in a number of communities, but for Calgary as well. And there are projects, and these are in Environment and Parks budget, not in mine. There's a number of projects of flood mitigation on the Bow River, which is potentially even a greater threat than the Elbow River is. And those are being addressed by that department.
Good. I look forward to asking your colleagues in Environment and Parks about that next week. So I'll move on to a couple of other topics then. One of the questions, and I think it was touched on a little bit earlier, but as it relates to lighting on highways and ring roads in particular, I know there's quite a bit of concern from Foothills County about the Dark Skies initiative, and if you could just talk a little bit, please, about whether you're aware of those concerns.
Yes.
And as you look to do lighting design, is the lighting design already completed for the Southwest Ring Road, or if not, if you will consider lighting that will be low intensity to maintain as dark a sky as possible while also maintaining safety? Well,
safety is, of course, really important. I'm aware that there is an observatory where there's some concerns. We've certainly had communications from the astronomical community with regard to this. I've asked the department to take a look at and come back to me with some kind of report indicating what the lighting looks like. And I don't know if my deputy can add more, or my assistant deputy minister on that. But so it is very much something that we're considering, and the baseline, of course, is providing enough light that the road's safe, first of all, and then to the degree we can do the other things without compromising that. That's how we hope to approach it. Okay, thank you very much. I understand, on behalf of my colleague, the MLA for Calgary, McKay-Nose-Hill, has asked that I ask you. I understand that there's an LED lighting project underway at Deerfoot and Stony in northeast Calgary, northwest Calgary. Is that? Can you update us on the status of that project? No, but maybe one of my officials can. All right, let's see.
Just maybe not on the exact status of that project, but as Minister Mason indicated earlier, we have a program in place to install LED lighting on all of our lighting across Alberta over the next 5 years. So that's part of the larger project.
Okay. And do you happen to know whether there's a schedule for Deerfoot, Stony, and Calgary?
I don't.
We'll get you that information and provide that in writing to you and all members of the committee.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Your business plan, page 145, ministry overview, lists one of your key activities as expanding and enhancing a multimodal transportation system enabling market access. Are you working with producers and federal authorities to help address the grain transportation glut? Is that something that's in your purview at all?
Well, of course, railways are a federal government responsibility. We certainly do communicate with the federal transport ministry with respect to regulation for the operation of the railways in terms of that. And I have met as well with not only the grain producers, and that was a while ago, but also with officials of the railways with respect to that matter and making sure that that's on their radar. You may know, honourable member, that the closest thing in this country to a sovereign country is the railways, and they don't need our permission to do much. Yeah, so they carry themselves with a certain level of assurance as a result of that.
That's obviously an important one. We hear from a lot of farmers having a great frustration getting their grain to market. So whatever you can do to help that, I'm sure would be.
Well, a pipeline would help.
I'm in favor.
Yeah.
I'm in favor. Very much. So I'm interested in just, you've talked a little bit about some of the innovation. I actually have to say I'm fascinated and encouraged by your approach, actually, and frankly your candor on the difficulty of predicting the future as it relates to autonomous vehicles and what the impact of that may be. And it's actually refreshing to hear a Minister of the Crown suggest that perhaps you don't have all the answers right now.
Well, nobody does, so
Yeah,
I'm in good company.
I'm going to remind you of that in the House one day, perhaps.
I would expect no less.
Yeah, but I am interested as we start to move down that path, whether so let's talk about Uber, I guess, and have they has that rollout as there are new regulations, especially as it relates to legalizing and insuring those services? How is that? What lessons have you learned? I mean, are there any concerns that we that you've identified as it relates to the insurance, especially?
The insurance was actually done by Treasury Board and Finance and the Superintendent of Insurance, and there was some delay in getting Uber approved until an appropriate insurance product could be developed that fits their business model. My understanding is that that's now done. So I don't particularly have a lesson learned from that, but it took a while to get that response from the insurance industry, but my understanding that there's a suitable product now.
Okay, good. I want to turn now to the Southwest Ring Road, and I know that there's, I've heard from several of my constituents and others who have a great deal of concern about the bridge span over the Elbow River.
Yes.
They're quite interested in seeing that being a single span as opposed to the design that exists today. Can you comment on that and whether you would consider their requests for that single span bridge, and if not, what the rationale is for proceeding as you have planned?
Well, if we went for a single span bridge, it would seriously put in jeopardy the path to balance, because you know, that's a really, really expensive thing. So we've widened the passage, so there's wildlife corridors that are provided for now. It's more than enough to handle the water flow of a 2013 level flood on the Elbow River, and we've taken new steps to mitigate any loss of wetlands according to the latest standards, which we didn't have to do, 2013 standards. So it does comply with all federal and provincial legislation, and we've had it reviewed and accepted by third-party consultants retained by the City of Calgary, and I think that's what we can afford to do. It meets all the needs. I know that there are people in that community and people that are you know, environmentally concerned that would like a single span that would not disrupt things, but that's not the plan. And as I mentioned earlier, we are constrained by timelines that we've been locked into. So complete redesign is not only expensive but jeopardizes the time frame. So
you're comfortable that the bridge that you're designing and will build would not be at risk of failure if in a 2013
no,
flood?
That's specifically been looked at by engineers and I think also by the outside consultant of the City of Calgary. Am I correct about that? Yeah. So.
And are you confident that
best advice, you know, best advice.
And are you confident that the design does not further exacerbate flood risk downstream in Calgary?
Well, downstream is less of a concern than upstream, but my understanding that upstream is satisfactory to 2013 level flood.
Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.